Hi, I'm Tracy Groombridge from the Women to the Front retreat. I'll be leading the retreat this year in the beautiful Derwent Valley. I've asked Jen today to come along and ask me a few questions about the retreat, just because it's more interesting for someone else to be asking me questions than me just standing here talking to the screen. So Jen, thank you for joining me today to ask these questions.
Hi Tracy, it's lovely to be with you, and thanks for inviting me in to have a conversation. I remember when you first introduced me to the concept, well, I just loved listening to your why, and I thought the idea of us having a conversation and then sharing that with everyone was a great one, because as women of our age, having to stare at ourselves in a screen is often not our favorite thing. So to be able to look at you instead of looking at my mug is much more is a much nicer concept. So it's lovely to be here, and let's dig into the retreat, shall we? So Tracy, when you were coming up with a name for your retreat, Women to the Front, where did the name come from, and what does it mean? What's the statement Women to the Front mean to you?
So I think for me, what happened for me was that what I started to see around the world was a bit of an uprising of women. So it started probably 5 or 6 years ago with the Me Too movement. It started, then you saw other things happening where women were starting to rise up and come to the front, or try to come to the front, I should say. And I started to see a movement that probably hasn't been around for a very long time, probably since the 60s. And I started to think that this is good stuff. Like, women are starting to see their worth again. We're starting to realise we're not going to put up with poor leadership. We're starting to back ourselves. We're starting to realise that we have what it takes to actually be in the front rather than in the back row all the time. There were some barriers and there were some leaders in the world that were kind of pushing us down. But the good part about that was that we're starting to rise up again. For me, I wanted to be part of that somehow. And I thought, how could I be part of that and give back as well, and help other women come to the front? So that's kind of where it started. And it started a while ago, I think, going around in my head. And it gave me some optimism. It gave me some, a bit of it made me passionate again about women and women's issues and women's leadership, and the fact that we weren't going to put up with it anymore. We're going to actually do something about this, and we're going to start to back ourselves in, and we're going to start to, really help each other. And now I think that was the other thing I saw, that women were helping other women, which was really cool.
Do you think it has anything to do with the stage of life that we are moving into this new kind of phase of maturity?
You mean like my stage of life, like in the 40s?
Yeah. So we're both in our 40s, and I remember somebody was saying to me that you're moving into this phase of newfound wisdom, and we also realize, I think it's in the stage of parenthood, if you choose to be a parent as well, or with where your own parents are in their stage of life, there is a lot of priorities change, and your perspective changes as well. Do you think that has impacted or influenced your thinking or your sense of purpose to create a retreat like this?
Absolutely. I think, people often say you come into your power. That's something that they talk about, women coming into their power in their 40s and 50s. And I think you get to a point where you go, you know what, I don't want to be the one who's not getting credit for my work anymore, or I don't want to be the one who's always picking up after everyone else. That I actually want to shine now because I can, and because I want to be, I want to be me. I also think you get to a point where you realise, for me, and I probably realised this quite early due to some trauma that I experienced, but life starts to look really short. you know. You start to realize when you hit your 40s that you start to calculate, and I did calculate how many years I might have left on this earth.
Yeah.
I know that sounds really morbid, but for me it was a really good thing to do, because it made me realize that I don't have much time left on this earth, in the scheme of things. I'm luckier than most. I've got more, I'm luckier than most. I've reached 40s.
Exactly. Yeah.
But what I do know is that if I can now, in the next 40 years, make a choice about what I want this next 40 years to look like. Because I think in the first 40 years, you're just trying to work it out. And then suddenly you realize, I'm actually I'm a pretty amazing woman. I've got some skills to give. The thing you might be lacking is some confidence and some self-compassion. But I think for me, it's given me a bit of optimism to see women starting to rise up again, and I really like that. I remember some of my teachers talking about the 60s and the feminists in the 60s and the women in the 60s, how they were so passionate, that get out on the street.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that was such a strange thing. But it's great. It's great to see. And you see young women doing it now.
Yeah. I went to a cabaret performance recently.
Yeah.
And it was highlighting the unsung heroes in the music industry. So it was a cabaret performance by Amelia Ryan and Libby O'Donovan. And they were sharing images or documents or examples of what life was like in the 50s and 60s in Australia.
Oh, fantastic.
And there was an ad that they had redesigned and applied onto tea towels and aprons, which I bought. I'm going to show you now. But there was an ad for a certain soap brand, which the advice was that if you use this soap, it would keep your mimsy clean. Do you know what your mimsy is? You can guess what your mimsy is. So it wouldn't smell like kippers. On the ad, a printed ad that would appear in the national newspaper.
And look, that's not that long ago.
That is not that long ago. So you think that's our parents' generation. So the effect of that on anybody who felt in any way second rate or lacking in confidence or maybe a little anxious. Can you imagine what that did to people's self-esteem?
Exactly. I mean,
And we're the offspring of that generation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, we've got learnt stuff from them as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think too, I was surrounded, one of the things that happens when you get into your 40s is you find yourself surrounded by these incredible women. And so you're going, oh my God, you're incredible. How did you accomplish that? And what did you do? How did you do that? And they're saying, I'm not that great. I'm not that amazing. My boss doesn't tell me I'm amazing, or my husband doesn't tell me I'm amazing, or, mum says I've always carried a bit too much weight. So these are incredible, accomplished women who I are looking at going, you're incredible, still in their 40s, I think, you just need to see that you are amazing. And if I can help in some little way with that, then that's what I want to do.
So what will the experience be like then? If that's the intention, what will the experience be like at the Women to the Front retreat?
I'm hoping that the experience will be one of which people can take some time out from their busy lives and actually spend time reflecting on who they are, what they want, taking a step back from all the busyness, because we rarely do that, and just having some space to just focus on themselves, because most women don't focus just on ourselves. Most of the time we focus on everyone else and everyone else's needs. So being able to, and also that's a real cultural thing, there's this idea that you are selfish if you do that, which is,
Absolutely.
But you can't be a good mum, you can't be a good leader, you can't be a good boss if you can't actually take time back to reflect on you and to look at what you want and how you do things, etc.
Yeah, to have that sense of clarity when your head is so clogged up with tasks and reminders and questions, it's really hard to come up with a solution, like rational, strong solutions,
And
because
clarity.
it's so compacted, right?
Yeah. And just some clarity, because you know what it's like when you're in the middle of life? It's hard to step back and get some clarity and perspective about things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
giving ourselves permission to do that, I think is really important. So that's one of the experiences I want people to have. But the other experience for me is just to enjoy some me time. So have some fun with other women who, you know, are seeking the same sort of thing that you're seeking, and just to relax and learn to relax, you know, and be comfortable with you and just have some enjoyment, some joy.
How are you going to help people to relax? Because I often find it takes me quite a while to actually move into a relaxed state. So it could take me 3 days to unwind, or it could take me 3 hours.
Yeah.
So obviously when you go to retreat, it's a condensed period, it's like concentrated magic, you know, that period of time.
And I think too, because people are coming there and they want to be there, that helps you relax in the first place, because you're doing it for yourself and you're getting there. But the other thing is that I suppose I have a set of skills that I'm a trainer, and so I've got to relax people really quickly, really fast, in order to get the best out of them in the session that they're in. So, and also having worked with women and families and people before, I've got a few tricks up my sleeve about how to help people learn to relax. And some of those are really simple, and some of those might take a little bit of extra time. I think the ingredient to relaxing is having confidence and giving permission that it's okay to relax.
Yeah. As soon as that button is pressed, the process starts.
Yeah.
So with your work as a trainer, how has that work? And maybe you might like to talk into what you train, what you're training
Sure.
in, and how that's going to contribute to people's experience.
So my work has mainly been in the mental health sector, so going to workplaces and do mental health training. But mental health is such a broad umbrella term. It can mean anything from, you know, mental illness through to mentally healthy workplaces to self-compassion and mindfulness. So it's such a broad term that I've been lucky enough to be able to train in a range of different things under that umbrella. And also work in the trauma space. So that's kind of been my background. So for me, this course that I designed for this retreat had to have its foundations in mental health.
Yeah.
Because being able to build a good leadership style on a good foundation of healthy mental health makes the difference for me between what is a really effective leader and what isn't.
Yeah.
And you can see that around the world at the moment with the poor premiers, you know, having to face up to the media every day. How much under the pump are they?
Yeah.
Their mental health must be critical at the moment.
Yeah. Well, look at the burnout and they use the term burnout.
They did, yeah.
For our Tasmanian premier.
Yeah, exactly.
He hit the wall. I mean, that we can easily forget, but that work must be relentless.
Oh, it would be relentless, exactly. And it'd be full on at the moment.
Yeah.
So if you can manage to build a really good leadership style on the basis of positive mental health or healthy mental health, then that sets you up for a really effective way of leading.
So is this retreat specifically for leaders or managers or people in a leadership role, or can anybody come?
So anyone can come, because my idea of leadership isn't about just leading at work or being a leader in a business. So my idea of leadership is that we all lead our own lives. So leadership in our life is really important. So for me, it doesn't matter whether you're running a multi-million-dollar business or whether you're running kids to school. At the end of the day, we all have to be leaders in whatever we're leading in our life. So for me, leadership is much broader than that. I think I really like that term, everyday leadership, because we've kind of turned it into this thing, right? That it's about politicians and it's about celebrities and it's about people that are big and noticeable and have something to say. But everyday leadership is just as important to me. And everyday leadership is about those little influences that you have with people. And it might be your neighbour, it might be the aunt that you're looking after, whoever. That to me actually defines leadership. You know, it doesn't leadership doesn't fit into this little box over here that says you have to have had an MBA and you're leading a team of 60 people, etc. Leadership is, to me, everyday leadership.
Yeah, I like that. I also liked how you said that, just going back into that, how do we get into that relaxed state, or that get that transitioning into it? And I just imagined, you know, getting in the car and knowing that you had made that commitment to invest in yourself, and getting into the car knowing that you had a journey ahead of you, while it's a, you know, wherever you're coming from in Tasmania to the Derwent Valley, is that the retreat actually starts as soon as you turn the ignition on in the car.
Yeah.
Set off. And that's a lovely transition time into the space that you will then welcome them into.
Yeah, that's a good visual.
So tell me about the place that you'll end up in. Tell me about the venue in the Derwent Valley. What's that going to be like?
So when I first saw this place, I instantly fell in love with it. It was, I guess to me, it was a Hamptons homestead with a sense of tranquility about it. Like, it was really hard to explain, but the outside looked really homey. The inside looked renovated and really funky. And the gardens, just, I could imagine kicking back at the end of the day in the garden, just relaxing, having something to eat and drink. And it was the most peaceful place. So for me, I was looking for something that said not too big, because this retreat's intimate. It's only for 7 women. And I was looking for something that and my husband laughs at this, but you know, when you go looking at a house and you walk in and you go, it's got to have a vibe about it.
Yep. Energy.
And energy. And it's got to have that feel, the vibe, you know, and this place had that for me. And I walked in and I felt that instantly. And the hosts were really lovely, and I felt their energy as well. And that was beautiful.
I would imagine that's really important for you who will be leading the retreat, that if you feel connected to that place,
yes,
you feel energized by that place, then you're going to give your best to everyone who is there. So that's a really important element for anyone who is choosing a space where they want to lead in or bring people together, is that it has to have that vibe that you can connect into, and then people will feed off that.
Yeah, hopefully that's the idea, that you know, and it just, the colors and the beauty of the place is just gorgeous. And if you've ever been in the Derwent Valley, that river itself, I mean, it inspires you just by looking at it.
Yeah, it really does. Is it near the river?
It's just adjacent to the river, but it's close enough. So yeah, and I imagined, you know, what it would look like if we had an afternoon tea break in the garden. You know, so yeah, it's beautiful. It really is, and safe and comfortable.
Great. Yeah. So it's in the Derwent Valley. So that's only a half an hour, 40-minute drive from Hobart.
Yes.
And then work out the rest from whatever other destinations. So really nice vision. You got photos of I think of the place, of the venue, up on your website, don't you?
Yes. So there's photos on the website. Yeah, for sure.
People do they share rooms, or do they get their own room?
No, so people have their own room and their own bathroom, they've got their own ensuite. And so, yeah, because people don't want to share rooms. Women our age don't want to share rooms. We're not, we're not doing sleepovers. People don't want to hear me snore,
Exactly. All of us.
So, yeah. And you want, especially when you're doing a retreat and you're doing a program, sometimes you just want, if you're an introvert in particular, you just want your own space to go back to and just relax.
Yeah.
But that's, for me, I know that because I'm an introvert, and that's really important to me, just having my own space.
So let's talk about sharing your energy and then kind of recharging your batteries, because often when you go on retreat, there's an invitation to be vulnerable and to share and to obviously to listen and then do work for yourself. So what's the flow going to be like in the work that you need to do versus thinking time or reflecting time?
So it'll be a combination of all of that. And one of the things I want to say to people is that I would never make people participate in terms of speaking if they didn't want to, because some people are just listeners, and some people need the time to reflect and think about it, and then maybe come back to me one-on-one, or we come together one-on-one rather than speaking in a group, because that can be quite intimidating. So I wouldn't expect anyone to do that. I want to meet people where they're at. I don't want to push people to be, where I'm at, basically. There'll be plenty of opportunity to, I try and make sure that it's fairly interactive, so that there's a little bit of me talking, there's a bit of thinking, there's a bit of discussion, there's a bit of, action. And when I say action, don't worry, we're not going for a run or anything like that, but action is in, we're not going out jogging. This body doesn't jog, but but what I mean by that is that, it might be that you have to go away and reflect on something we've talked about and answer some questions for yourself. It might be that type of action.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's, we go to retreat because for some of us, we need that encouragement to do that work. It depends on what kind of a learner you are as well. But I often find that, I'm very good at keeping it on here.
Yeah.
And to find the tools of how to get it out and then see it, then can either shift my thinking or make me make it a different decision. But it's that action of actually being guided through that. I think some people feel that's really helpful for those who aren't naturally good at journaling or getting it out of your head.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not particularly good at that, but I've learned to be good at it. So, and that's been really helpful for me, because I've had good people around me who are able to pull that out of you. And I know how valuable that is.
Yeah.
So valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And most of us are really good at thinking stuff. So we can think, gee, that's a good idea, I'm going to do that one day. Or, I'm not bad at that, maybe I can make that happen. We're really good at the thinking stage. We can think about things for years. But we're not so great at getting from the thinking stage to the action stage. So sometimes we just need a little help getting there.
Yeah.
And we just need a little support, a little help, a little bit more information, and some tools.
Yeah.
To do that.
And also when you're in that busy state, or whether you're parenting or working or supporting or volunteering, we also need to be reminded how. Because
we can get caught up in that for years.
Yes, we
and
can.
Like, I meet women all the time, especially my friends around me, who have amazing ideas, and I'm like, why don't you do something with that? That is an incredible idea. And they're like, oh, I just don't know how to get from A to B, and it's all too hard. And I'm thinking, that's where a retreat gives you a chance to take a step back and go, well, I've always wanted to do this, but I've never really known how to make that jump.
Gosh, that is so true. I haven't thought about that for a long time. That is so true. So when you discover that, or maybe this is reminding people of a thought that they'd had months ago or years ago, or they kind of pushed it away because either it wasn't the right time, or they got stuck with, but I don't know whether it's through fear or lack of knowledge or timing, whatever.
Mhm.
What would you suggest as a quick kind of hack or a quick tip what is the next step? Is it finding someone to talk to? Is it writing down that idea?
I think there's one silver bullet, because for different people, it requires different things. And for me, sometimes it's as simple as talking to somebody else and going, what do you think I should do with this? And where do you think it could go next? So having those few mentors in your life that are really good with that sort of stuff. But then on other times, it's been about the fact that something's happened in my life and I've realized, you haven't really got that much time left. Let's look at what you're going to do next, because, I think it's different for everyone. I think the thing I would say to turn thoughts into actions requires a shift in confidence. And sometimes you've got to start that. You've got to start that train moving forward.
And overcome that fear of failure.
Yeah, because that's all it is.
Yeah, or looking stupid.
Or aiming for perfection
aiming for perfection.
Yeah.
I don't believe exists.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Just a subjective term. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in your work preparing for this retreat, you'll have so much learning from that. But also in the work that you do, in your training, where do you see, this is a big question, but where do you see the most need for action?
It's a massive question. It is a massive question, but I'm thinking, for me right now, so I've been working in mental health for over 20 years. It's the first time that I have seen mental health be in the newspapers and be in the media at the rate it is. In a good sense, right? So not just talking about poor mental health, but also what are we doing for positive mental health as well. So for me, it feels like the time is right to actually start to really make some ground on this idea of mental health and looking after ourselves like we look after everyone else or look after our best mate. So I think, and it's starting already, you're seeing people talk about mental health now, whereas 5 years ago, nobody would even mention that they had
It was so taboo, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was so taboo. So it's great. It's the time is right and the ripening is happening. So that's a good place to start. But I also think for women, we have to start being a little kinder to ourselves and starting to shift some of these expectations. And that's happening as well. So we're seeing that starting to happen, which is great. Gives me optimism. So I think they're the two areas. If we're going to try and improve leadership in the world, if that's what the question is, which is massive, maybe they're the two areas that we need to really focus on: compassion and good mental health and healthy mental health.
And it's even reflecting on, well, what are my expectations in this area, in work, in my family life, in my partnership, and taking a cold hard look at whether they're realistic.
Yes, absolutely. But it's not just thinking about them. Sometimes it's about talking about them out loud, because I know how I have expectations, and at home, if I've got expectations and they're in my head and I haven't said them out loud, then I can't really expect others to. If I've got an expectation.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, they just are supposed to subliminally understand.
Yeah, and even at work, we don't talk about, how often do we sit down with our boss and go, here are my expectations of the job. Here's what I think is expected of me. What do you think is expected of me? So expectations, I think, is a big area, and we do drill down a bit into that at the retreat. We either have them way too high, where they're unattainable, or way too low, where we don't get any satisfaction from meeting them.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will relate to that.
Yeah, and I still have to remind myself daily about expectations.
Yeah.
You know, what I can actually achieve in a day, for example.
And it's so often is when you actually get in the room with other people and have these conversations, there can be a massive sigh of relief when you realize, oh, I'm not the only one who has, you know, expectations that are unrealistic or otherwise, or, you know, just that shared, those, you know, sharing those thoughts or perceptions, I guess, in itself, that could be the gold that you take away.
Oh, that's treasure in itself, yeah. Because, you know, most of us don't do that. Most of the time we don't get into a room and open up and be vulnerable and share with other people. We might do that with our family. We might do that with a few close friends. But when I see it happen in trainings, like when I create a safe environment for people to actually talk about vulnerabilities, like expectations, for example, the shift in the room is amazing. And the fact that people are learning from each other and going, I thought that was just me that was, you know, like that. Yeah. It stops you feeling alone, you know.
It's comforting almost. Yeah.
It's comforting, and it feels good to be among like folk, you know.
Yeah, it really does. So how would you like the participants of your retreat to feel at the end of the retreat? And then what should they expect in the aftermath, I guess?
I love this question because it got me. I really like this question. So anyway, so what should people feel leaving the retreat? My hope is that people will feel inspired to be themselves, to take some sort of action that helps them be themselves, and to feel inspired to do something different in this second part of your life. To go, I'm actually going to start being kinder to myself and be who I want to be from now on in. I've got 40 years left. This is what I want to do. This is who I am. I really like who I'm going to be. I want to do that. So
for some, it might be a giant shift.
Yeah.
And for others, it might be, I'm going to try at tennis.
Exactly. It might be something tiny, you know,
or it might be, yes, I'm going to tidy up that mess at the end of my bed that has been staring at me for a month, or it could be something as simple as that, right?
Exactly. Or it could be as simple as I'm going to start a new thing. I'm going to start every night before I go to bed, I'm going to do a gratitude journal, or I'm going to say one thing that works for me during the day. You know, simple, tiny little things that make a difference.
Yeah.
But also I hope they take some of the real gems that they get from the retreat that I've spent 20 years just pulling together in a big shoebox and going, one day I'm going to give all this information to someone because it's really good stuff. And hopefully taking one of those things and going and running with it.
So really you are that person, you know, who at the end of the retreat might go, I think I'd like to run a retreat.
Yeah, exactly. I was exactly
elected. Yeah.
Yeah, I am that person.
You are that person. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think in the longer term, after they've left the retreat, I kind of think of it a bit like a little flickering flame. So you know how you go along in life and it's been a year and a half since the retreat and something happens and, you know, you've thrown a curveball.
Yeah.
But you pull out something that reminds you of that time you were at that retreat and you are instantly transported back there and you think, that's right, that worked. That's right. That's how I felt then. I felt inspired and I felt like me again. And for me, I hope that my retreat is like a little flicker that happens throughout people's lives and they can remember and they go, oh, that's right. I remember I learnt that at the retreat. So if that's what people get out of it, I will be over the moon happy.
You're like a pilot light.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. Hopefully. And I know that's happened to me when I've attended things like that. Every now and then I'll pull out a piece of paper that's got something written on it that I remembered from something I attended, and I think I'm not going to forget that. And life happens, and then you find it one day and you go, oh, that's right. that's who I am. That's what I'm about,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So that little reminder, hopefully.
Lovely. How can people book in to the retreat?
So they can book in a couple of ways. So one is they can go to our website and book in, which is mcleod9mentoring.com.au. And the second way is they can go to Eventbrite and directly look for Women to the Front Retreat and book in that way. They can hop on our Facebook or our Instagram and send me a message either way. So, or if people want to actually give me a call and have a chat about it, because sometimes it's a bit daunting going to a retreat without even speaking to the person who's running it.
Yeah, it's really nice to open that door a little bit.
Yeah, so if people want to have a chat, I'm open for a chat, and I'd love to talk to them.
Well, knowing the work that you do outside of the retreat and the skills that you have, I mean, makes you the perfect person to lead a retreat like this, and to create the space for people to discuss what it means to be a woman and what the front means.
Yeah.
As well, and all the tips and the strategies that you have worked out and the exercises you've worked out is going to be a really bountiful experience for the people who are lucky enough to go.
And I think the front, Jen, will be different for everyone.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this, is that it's a very personal journey, and you have a great way of being able to prepare the space for each individual so that it's really aligned with who they are and where they're at that moment. Yeah, I think it's going to be great. Lucky people who get the first few spots of what will be a long and ongoing Women to the Front series of retreats.
So I'm excited.
Yeah, great to chat to you.
Thanks, Jen.